In this video, we're going to have a look at how you write about a writer's choice of words. In other words, when you're asked to do language analysis, what does that actually mean? There are different ways of asking the same question, and you'll come across these different ways in exams, in lessons, and in textbooks. You'll be asked questions such as, how does the writer use? How does the writer create? How does the writer introduce? You can have any number of verbs at the end of that sentence, but it's basically asking you the same thing. So, to answer the question, we need to look at how a writer does anything. What does a writer actually do? Well, if you look at it in a straightforward way, a writer puts certain words in a certain order on a page. That might sound flippant, but if you think about it like that, language analysis becomes quite straightforward and actually quite easy to do. Let's look at it from a different angle. If you think about what a writer does, a writer makes decisions because they put those certain words in that certain order on the page. They're all decisions that they've made. It's just the same as a footballer makes certain decisions about where to put the ball. They make decisions about where to put their body, whether they should be before the defender or behind the defender. It's all decisions. An artist makes certain decisions about where and how to apply colour and where and how to apply texture. Basically, anybody with a skill or an ability chooses, they make decisions to do things in a certain way. And when you look at a writer in that way, it becomes more straightforward to explore their craft or their skill. So, what does a writer do? They put words in order. To understand how they've done it, we need to look at those decisions. We look at the words and we look at the order in which the words have been put on the paper. So we need to ask ourselves, of all the words in the world, why did you choose that one? Let's think about a word itself. And any word carries huge amounts of weight, metaphorically, huge amounts of weight. Any word has so many things associated with it. And there's just an example here of 3 different things. So first of all, symbolism. So many words. As soon as you say them, people have a certain idea of what that word symbolises. So the word heart, for example, the word candle, the word church, the word doorway. So many words have symbolism associated with them. So that's one lot of weight that they're already carrying. This middle image of a rucksack, that's the baggage that a word carries, because words have history. And there might be a word that is in use now that used to have an entirely different meaning in the past, or it might have associations with times from history, significant moments in history that change that word forever. They make it weigh a lot more. If you use that word, you have to think about its historical background before you can just throw it around, because it's too heavy to just throw around. And then the final picture there is a suitcase. Every word, you could pack a suitcase, if not more, with the number of potential connotations of that word. Now, by connotations, we mean the associations that our brains make straight away with a word. It's like word association. So if I say the word apple, the connotations in your head right now will be different to the connotations that are going on in everyone else's head that's watching this video, because we all have different associations with the word apple. Some people might have gone straight to the technology, for example. Some people might have gone straight to a bright red apple, like a witch's apple. Some people might have gone to a green apple. They might have gone to trees. Who knows? The connotations are humongous. But this is the point. A word, a single word, carries weight in so many different ways. Here's an example. Look at the following words: silver, bronze, and gold. Now, straight away, because of both the symbolism and the connotations of those words, I imagine some of you feel a little bit awkward about the order of those words, because I've gone silver, bronze and gold, and I'm fairly sure there's an order that you would rather see that in. But they're just words, but because of the symbolism, because of the connotations, those three words, really, we want them in a different order. It's ridiculous, really, when you think about it. I mean, I should have put them in alphabetical order. Now, a writer knows this. A writer knows the power of a word. A writer will know that certain words have certain connotations to certain groups of people. They'll know that a word carries historical significance, that a word carries symbolic meaning. They will know that a word they have chosen will have an influence. Now, that word influence means to change something, to effect a change. So it might be to make somebody feel differently, think differently, act differently. When it comes to language, when it comes to words that we read on the page, the influence on the reader can be one of many things. Let's have a look at some of the words you might use. A writer will make a decision on the influence that they want to have on the reader. It might be that they want them to feel a certain way. It might be that they want them to understand something. The writer might want us to question something. They might want the reader to sympathise, or they might want the reader to picture. There are so many different verbs that you can use when you are analysing language. So you choose your word and you explain the connotations, historical significance, any symbolism that's in there, and then you can suggest what you think the writer wanted to do in terms of influencing the reader. What did the writer intend with that use of that word? Your task for the writing section of chapter 1 is to look at what the words dark and creature imply about the group that contains Ralph and his choir boys. This is the paragraph that you've got on your worksheet. Within the diamond haze of the beach, something dark was fumbling along. Ralph saw it first and watched till the intentness of his gaze drew all eyes that way. Then the creature stepped from mirage onto clear sand, and they saw that the darkness was not all shadow, but mostly clothing. So that introduction, William Golding has made a deliberate decision there to present Jack and his choir boys in a different way to everybody else. The other boys are all on the platform with Ralph and Piggy, but the choir and Jack arrive last, and they're described in this very specific way. So your job is to identify and explain what the words dark and creature in particular imply about Jack and his group. I'm going to give you an example of how you might go about doing this by using different words from this same extract. So let's have a look at that. So the quote I'm going to look at is within the diamond haze of the beach. Something dark was fumbling along. So the three words I'm going to focus on are diamond, something, and fumbling. Now I've put the images back up there so we can remind ourselves. We need to look at historical baggage associated with a word, connotations associated with a word, and symbolism, if there is any, associated with a word. So diamond, something, and fumbling. The word diamond, if we're going to understand why Golding has chosen that word, we need to think about what he might have intended to make us think about in our minds. So he's used it to influence us in some way, and we need to work out what that might be. So we look at those three things: the connotations, the associations, and the symbolism. Firstly, the connotations of a diamond. To me, I think of something sparkling, dazzling. I think of beauty. Symbolism. I think of a diamond as symbolising something rare. So rarity and clarity. Clarity meaning something that's clear. And I know both of these things because from personal experience in my own engagement ring, diamonds are measured according to their clarity and their colour. Therefore, as well, I associate diamonds with unison through their association with engagement rings, and thereby I associate that with expense, because a diamond engagement ring, if it's of a high level of clarity, then it's going to be expensive. Associations. So if you think about other associations, historical or otherwise, with diamonds, most of us know that diamonds are strong, dense stones. They're formed under pressure. They are a certain carbon structure. It's the solid form of the element carbon, and there's a certain structure to the atoms within it which make it extra strong. So these are all the associations and symbols and connotations I can think of. So now we need to think, right, Golding has used the phrase diamond haze to describe the beach. We're thinking about that group, so the dark fumbling group. So why might Golding have started that whole paragraph about Jack and his choir by telling us that this dark fumbling creature came out of this diamond haze? Why would you have a diamond haze image in front of you, this shining, bright, hot, dazzling beach, and then from out of that comes this dark, fumbling creature? That's the question we need to answer. I'm now going to attempt to articulate, to explain why I think Golding has used that word diamond. And I'm still linking it to this question about what is implied about the group, what is suggested about Jack and his choir. But I'm going to look at this word diamond. So I've written, Golding uses the phrase a diamond haze to describe the beach. The word diamond is as multifaceted in meaning as it is in its physical form. I was proud of that sentence. Firstly, a diamond is a precious stone, symbolic of luxury and rarity, as well as of unison in its historic association with engagement rings. Diamonds are also notoriously, that means well known, sparkly, and are often depicted as emitting dazzling flashes of light. So there's my first explanation of the things that were on the previous slide. It's symbolic of this, it's got associations with this, it's well known as being this. So here's where I explain it. And I'm using, in that green highlight there, I'm using one of those verbs of influence. This is what I think Golding wanted us to do. The use of the phrase, a diamond haze, could therefore prompt the reader to understand that this island is a treasure, something precious and dazzling to the boys. This is corroborated, that means supported by, their breathless declarations of, this is our island, and whizzo. The blinding light could also imply that the boys may be metaphorically blind to something, or tricked by some metaphorical light. Golding even calls it a mirage, implying that there is no treasure to be found here. So I've got quite a lot of layers in that second paragraph, but what I've basically said is I think Golding used the phrase diamond to help us understand that this island is dazzling in that same way. It's associated with those flashes of light, with that bright metaphorical promise of something special. And then I've doubled up in the second part with a potentially negative idea linked into the idea of this metaphorical blindness. So maybe this diamond haze is dazzling them to the point where they might think that this island is better than it actually is going to be. I can even go a bit further with this. So I've explained the connotations and associations and symbolism of the diamond. I've given some idea of what I think Golding wanted us to understand. And now on this slide, I've got an extra final paragraph that just absolutely explains fully what I'm trying to say about how that use of the word diamond helps us understand more about Jack and his group. So I've said Golding may have used the phrase a diamond haze to emphasise, another one of those verbs, to emphasise a powerful contrast for the reader, to make them picture the stark difference between the brightness and the something dark fumbling along. The word something brings connotations of the unknown, the indefinable, which is the opposite of a sharply defined diamond. The darkness fumbling is the polar opposite of the sharp, bright, crystal connotations of the typical clarity we expect from a diamond. This helps the reader to sense that there is something to be feared about this group. Their dark, fumbling nature brings a shady unknown into the previous sparkling paradise. Now, you might completely disagree with all of that, and so might everybody in the world, but do you know what? I would still be awarded a nice grade for this particular bit of writing because I have, in the yellow, I have explained connotations, associations, meaning of the word to me. I have then considered carefully with 4 different verbs what effect that has on the reader, what Golding might have wanted to do for the reader, what influence he wanted to have over us. And I've used understand, emphasise, picture and sense. Okay, so now it's your turn. Your question asks what the words dark and creature imply about this group, about Jack and his choir. So your first task is, if you look back at my diamond slide, look at the word dark, then look at the word creature and think about those 3 groups of associations, connotations for each of those words, for dark and for creature. Once you've explored all the ideas in your mind, then you should have an idea about why Golding might have used those words to describe Jack and his group. So then your job is to explain in as much detail as possible using those verbs from the reader, so that you can use the green ones I used, you can use the ones from the previous slide, but you need to explain why has Golding used these words? What does he want to suggest about the group? Why did he make the decision to use these words? How did he want the reader to respond? Good luck. Look forward to seeing the results. Thank you for listening.